The bathroom I can see. Look, good morning, everybody. We're going to jump straight in. As Henry has already done, I'd like to acknowledge our life members medalists, executive committee members, and of course all of the full and associate members in the room. I'd also like to welcome our friends, partners, and in particular recognise our sponsors who have made this event possible. Thank you all for your generous support, and I know you're all going to enjoy today and have a lot of fun this evening. I should also point out that 4 years ago, we just needed the hardcover banners that we used to have on the side of the stage to display the sponsors for the event. And this year, we've had to get one of these things. I don't know what they are. I imagine they're incredibly expensive. But this year, this is the state that the conference is in. We have overwhelming support. And I would like to sincerely say thank you to the sponsors. I think sometimes they get overlooked. But without the confidence that you have in our organisation and the confidence that you show in our membership, this just isn't possible. So thank you very much to our sponsors. As has been announced, today is my last day as Chief Executive of the NTCA. 4 years ago in Alice Springs, I began my tenure on this exact day in a podium very similar to this. There's a symmetry to that, and I thank all of you for the privilege of leading this organisation for the time that has been given to me. I could not be prouder to have Romy stepping into the role as new Chief Executive. We've been planning this transition very carefully for the past 12 months, and I could not be more excited for Romy. I know with the guidance of the membership and the Executive Committee and the strong and kind hand of Henry, she's going to do a terrific job. Ladies and gentlemen, please a round of applause for Romy. Now, traditionally, I think for those who make it to the end of the day of the conference in the past, the CEO has done the closing address. But today is my last day and Romy is doing the closing address this afternoon. So, what am I doing here? Surely you've all seen enough of me in the last 4 years. Well, you see, I don't have a job. I need one and you're a captive audience. You are literally trapped. I have strategically placed myself between the President and Senator Price in order to maximise my own audience. If you would like to make a run for the doors, I can assure you they have already been locked. You can't get away, you just have to sit here for a while and listen, and hopefully I can persuade some of you to offer me a traineeship. Firstly, and on a serious note, I would like to talk about this wonderful association and offer some explanation for its stature in the country. I've often been asked in the last 4 years, what makes the NTCA the organisation it is? What is its secret? How is it that such a relatively small industry association in a far-flung part of this land able to move with the effectiveness and speak with the voice that we have? And in truth, the answer sounds straightforward, but in my experience, it is rare amongst many industry organisations today. The NTCA's staff are so often seen publicly to fight with a drive and purpose and commitment unparalleled anywhere. I've only seen it in some Indigenous organisations that I've worked with and gone up against, and in this we actually share a great deal in common with them. So where does this come from? This ferocious drive? Is it just that we continue to hire a series of emotionally unstable, easily controlled, borderline psychotic individuals with anger problems who we then feed a near endless stream of public servants and politicians to them in order so that they could take out these desperate emotions on them? Okay, I will concede a point. There was a time where I think that may have been the case. But no, there's much more to it than that. You see, the secret is this. The NTCA does not represent the cattle industry in the Northern Territory. We don't, and we don't pretend to. The NTCA represents the people of the cattle industry in the Northern Territory, and that distinction is vital. We are not fighting purely for the economic productivity of our members, but for our members as who they are. And as staff for the organisation that entrusts you with the heart and soul of your industry, not just the dollars and the cents, your conviction in a dogfight does not depend on the size of your teeth. This is the secret of the NTCA, and is the secret to why other organisations struggle, regardless of the effectiveness of the work that they do. We aren't just paid to represent your business, we are paid to represent you. It is also the faith and trust you place in our staff that allows us to be such fierce advocates on your behalf, and it is the example you lead by that makes the weight of carrying this trust and gives us our drive. The secret to the NTCA is you. We fight for you. not just your cattle or your station, but who you all are. This is the secret others will leave here and ponder, and it is the secret many outsiders to our industry and our association will never fully understand. So in my final address to you all, I would like to take this time to ask for a round of applause, please, for the NTCA, the staff and its members for forming the reason for all of us to be here today. For the next section of my speech, for those who've heard me speak in the last couple of years, I normally do the closing address, and I've got a bit of a patchy record. I think in my first speech, I quoted a German philosopher in Latin. Not a strength of mine, it wasn't a good moment. I'm hoping most of you weren't there for that one. Last year, I quoted, I think it was an ancient Roman philosopher. So I'm not doing any of that this year. This year, I'm going to go for a joke. It's a risky one for me. So a banker, a German and a billionaire walk into a bar and begin lecturing a farmer on the moral and ethical values of his business. That's it. That's the joke. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah. I didn't say it was funny, but it is most certainly a joke nonetheless. Today we exist in a kind of bizarro world where rich listers, billion-dollar companies, obscenely wealthy countries and idiots, hang on, sorry, that's meant to read democratically elected representatives of our capital cities. I'm just making that amendment now. Believe that their virtue is greater than ours, and their opinions are easily replaceable for fact. The commitment companies are making about not sourcing from properties that conduct deforestation at this point in time is laughable. Laughable, but certainly not funny. I happen to know of one major Australian bank which made an announcement in the morning about not lending to companies that carried out acts of deforestation. By that afternoon, they were organising teleconferences with some of our industry's leaders to ask if a definition for deforestation existed. That's right, an ASX-listed multi-billion-dollar Australian bank underwritten by the Australian taxpayer made an announcement to ban a practice of which they weren't 100% sure of. Nailed that one, boys. I'm sure the shareholders were ecstatic. In the last few weeks, it has gotten worse. The ACCC, Australia's competition watchdog, provided an exemption for the major banks to collude together, as long as this collusion was about placing criteria on lending for legal Australian businesses, conducting legal Australian practices, providing that these restrictions were legal Australian businesses conducting legal Australian practices. And this collusion is about restricting their activities, not in line with the law, but with activist agenda. As long as this collusion was for these things, this was acceptable to Australians' competition and anti-corruption watchdog. It sounds like an episode of Utopia, except it is true. This announcement comes off the back of the Net Zero Banking Alliance in the United States falling apart, following the election of Donald Trump, and fears that the illegal actions being undertaken by this group may be prosecuted by US officials who had previously turned a blind eye. The point here being that an elected official was able to turn the tide by the simple act of being elected in the first place. Where are our elected officials? The question still remains, and for us in the Northern Territory, this is a very real and very present risk. If we somehow continue to run the gauntlet of territory legislation, federal legislation, departments, activist organisations and some at the ABC, our banks and our markets might get us. And this is something we must fight against with every fibre of our being. Our right to develop the region in which we live so that the people we live in it with can have a better life must remain. The Coalition has promised to use the full weight of law to bring this behaviour to heel if elected. I strongly urge our national representative bodies to force this kind of commitment from Labor, though I will not hold my breath for their success. I'll move on to another topic now. And this one is a topic that's been an ongoing issue in the Northern Territory, I think, for as long as I've been here, and will likely continue to be an issue into the future. It is a difficult one to talk about. This week I was made aware that at a cave on a pastoral station in the Northern Territory which was home to an Indigenous burial ground, had trespassers in it, and sacred artefacts had been taken. This abhorrent behaviour, not only to Indigenous people, for which the act would have caused immense pain and suffering, but to every Australian, cannot be accepted in the future. These sites are sacred for good reason, and the act of interfering with any person laid to rest anywhere is despicable. But the key to addressing this issue is not to look to add additional legislation, but to fix the legislation we currently have. And we need to, as the current legislative framework is weakening protections for these sites by creating too much confusion. For many of the people who play a vital role in these protections, namely us, the lack of information and the mixed or totally vacant communications we receive about these sites simply isn't good enough, and the multiple agencies administering this legislation are failing to acknowledge this. The last three issues where pastoralist activities in the Territory did or were alleged to have the potential to interfere with Indigenous sites have each come from three different pieces of legislation wielded by three different entities. One, the Heritage Act in the NT. Two, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Heritage Protection Act at a federal level. And three, the Sacred Sites Act in the Northern Territory. In each of these instances, the lack of known information not provided to pastoralists who were not aware of its existence caused harm to all parties involved. As landholders in the Territory, we do not have the right of exclusive possession. We are subject to a number of conflicting and overlapping leases and declarations, but it is simply irresponsible to not share information of sacred sites with users and owners of the land, and it undermines our ability to protect them, as well as our confidence in the systems established for this good purpose. There are dangers here. As we have seen with the events in the Tiwi Islands, there are risks that these vital legislative tools can be wielded on behalf of Indigenous people by those motivated by extremist agendas and co-opting good people's views. I cannot imagine a lower act than to be entrusted with communicating and recording the existence of sacred sites on behalf of Indigenous people living in remote areas, only to exploit this information for your own personal gains. And yet, we know it happens. We all do. And what have we done to prevent it happening? The answer is nothing. The parties involved in the issue on the Tiwi Island have been cleared by politicians of any wrongdoing, despite the court finding that it had occurred and it was egregious. I speak of these things and I can feel people in the room becoming uncomfortable, becoming frightened of what I might say next. But if honesty is the act of a friend, then raising your voice instead of standing silent against acts or failings that are clearly and blatantly wrong is the extension of this sentiment. If I get labelled as a racist for saying that the legislative framework we have to protect sacred sites in the Territory is a complete and utter joke, then so be it. But it won't change the fact that I'm right. There must be reform, and this reform must recognise that there is an enormous array of issues here. Pastoralists and the NTCA must have a seat at this table, if only for the fact that the only other people who live side by side with these sites and wish to see them preserved for generations to come are us. Change must happen, but it must happen and be inclusive for all Territorians. Right. For the next section of my speech, I need to start with a disclaimer. What I'm about to say is not the position of the NTCA, nor does it reflect the manner in which the NTCA has engaged with government in the past 4 years. However, I no longer believe it serves Australian agriculture to kid itself that the Australian Labor Party is a friend to us. I should also make it clear that my position is not based on my personal politics, but my experiences and what I've seen during the past more than a decade working in agri-politics. Here is one of the truths I've learned. The federal government is going to badly lose the fight over compensation in the Brett Cattle case. They are going to cost the Australian taxpayer, including all of us in this room, hundreds of millions of dollars. It is not the position of federal Labor that only the courts get to decide the quantum. This is an independent legal process. It is the position of federal Labor that they are hoping they get voted out before the quantum has to be paid. There is no other word for this. It is quite simply cowardice. It is quite simply a betrayal of the qualities we expect in our leaders. And because of it, I can only say that Labor has made its bed, and now they must lie in it. They know what this means to the entirety of the Australian agricultural sector, not just us, that this justice be done, and they withhold it at a cost not just to us, but to every Australian. We are not the natural enemy of their party, a party founded on the back of the shearers in the regions of this great country. It is not us who have wandered. It is not us who have strayed. It is them, and we must remind them of this and seek for them acknowledgement of their failings. Agriculture is not the natural enemy of any political party in this country, nor is it their friend. We are the food your children eat, the clothes they wear on their backs. For any party in this land to decide we are the enemy is for the party to depart from what it is to be human, to depart from what it is to be Australian. To treat us this way is their failing, not ours. It is to betray who they are and the obligation they owe us all. Until this is rectified, we simply cannot call them a friend. I urge agriculture nationally, don't go along to get along, as our friends at the NCCA in the US refer. Stand your ground and fight. There is more honour and integrity in losing a fight today before biding your time to strike back again in the future than never striking at all. Labor must be made to realise the harm they have caused to us all, and that harm goes far beyond the people just in this room. Now, sorry. Sorry, that's a hard section, just with David. Warren are obviously being very ill at the moment. It means a lot to me personally, and I know to everyone here, that we see an end to this as quickly and as soon as possible. Now, if I go on any longer, the girls are going to rope me off stage. Having seen some of the girls rope, though, I'm pretty confident that if I just stand still, I should be fine. That's a pretty brave cowboy joke from someone who can't ride a horse. Just before I get to my closing section, I added in a little bit this morning, and I admit I was a bit silly for forgetting it in the first place. Before I close, and this will be the last, speech I'll give to you all as Chief Executive, I need to acknowledge one person in particular above all, that in the last 4 years, I truly don't think I'd be able to be standing here still without them, and she is going to be horrendously mortified by this, but Carrie Moffat, my fiancée, is in the crowd here somewhere. We're getting married next month, and I can honestly say that every issue and blow that the members have felt in the last 4 years has not just been felt by me, but it's been felt by her. These roles are a partnership, I think everyone knows that, and so much of our industry is about a partnership, and the person who stands beside you is probably the reason, or at least 99% of the reason why you're able to do what you do. So I'd just like to say a huge thank you to Carrie for all of her support. I was sitting outside this hall yesterday, and I must have looked a bit glum because one of the eminent life members of our association came down and sat next to me and asked her how I was going. I answered that I was going fine, that I was excited for Romy, and mostly satisfied with my time at the association. I'm enormously proud to be leaving the association stronger than when I started, and that I've been able to make a small contribution to this incredible group. Well, then why do you look a bit down, they asked. To be honest, I hadn't realised I was looking down, and if I'm very honest, it's probably because I was a bit hungover. But nonetheless, I considered the question. After pondering over it, my answer was this. I'm just not sure I'm ever going to do anything as important as this ever again. Our life member thought about it for a bit before answering in only the way that NTCA life members can. Yeah, you probably won't. The true commitment of an NTCA life member shining through right there. Mercifully, they continued. But that's kind of the point, isn't it? This job has left its brand on you. You're one of us now. It has truly been my life's honour to work here, to work for you all. I hope it's not the most important thing that I ever do in my life. I hope there is more that I can do, that I can take the values and the lessons that I learned here out into a bigger world. But if it is, then I'm okay with that. I was once able to say I was the Chief Executive Officer of the Northern Territory Cattlemen's Association. I thank you all sincerely for that privilege. Thank you.